Welcome. Thank you for standing by. Participants are in a listen-only mode until the question and answer session of today's conference. At that time, you may press star 1 on your touch-tone phone to ask a question. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect. And now I would like to turn it over to your host, Mr. Gregory Briscoe. Thank you, sir. You may begin.
Yes, thank you and welcome to everybody. Good morning here in Seoul, but good evening and good afternoon back in the United States. My name is Greg Briscoe. I am the Senior Commercial Officer at the U.S. Embassy here in Seoul, and I want to welcome everybody to this webinar. We're going to talk about Korea's aerospace and defense market, and then about the Seoul Air Show, which will be taking place in the fall. Next slide. So I just want to briefly, as we open up, just want to introduce the team and the key contacts here at the embassy, and then with Coleman in relation to the defense sector here and the market here, and then also the air show. This is our commercial service team here at the embassy. Bob Dunn is our Deputy Senior Commercial Officer, and then Sunny Park is our commercial specialist, and she has the expertise and works here on the ground and can work with your firms. Then also Richard Carpenter, who we'll hear from later in the presentation, is out of our Chicago office. He's helping on the U.S. side with promotion and recruiting for the show. Also, we have with us Colonel Gelati from Just Mag K. We'll talk a little bit about what they do here at the embassy, and that's his team, Commander Garbett, Lieutenant Colonel Rayleigh, and then Joe Young-Oh. And then, importantly, also I want to introduce the Coleman team, Carolyn and Peter. And Peter will be presenting later today. And they will be at the show and can answer all your questions about the show and the pavilion. Next slide. This is just to help you understand who you should contact if you're interested in the aerospace and defense market here at the embassy. We are the U.S. Commercial Service. Our goal and our aim is to help U.S. companies export the U.S.-made products and services here to the Korean market. And then also Just Mag K, they are an integral part of the country team here at the embassy, and they help to support, and as it says there, the Republic of Korea government in modernization and sustainability of its armed forces. They work directly with the Korean government, and goal, and Colonel Gelati can maybe expand on that a little bit later, but their goal is to help integrate and find interoperability between U.S. forces and Korean forces here on the peninsula. Also, just importantly, Just Mag K is your main contact point for FMS cases, and we in the commercial service will help on the commercial sales to the government. Next slide. This is an overview of our presentation today. I'll give some general facts about the Republic of Korea. Then we'll turn the time over to Sunny and Colonel Gelati. They'll take those next three elements, talking about the defense market, procurement, and opportunities and barriers. Then we'll turn it over to Richard Carpenter, who will talk about commercial services. And it's not on here, but then we'll also have Coleman, representatives from Coleman, to talk about the air show and answer questions about that and logistics there, and then we'll open it up for Q&A at the end. So let's just talk a little bit about, to kind of give an overview of the Korean market. Korea, before we get into these numbers, I think it's important to note, and I arrived here at this assignment in September. So I've been here less than a year, but it's quite a remarkable economy, and even more so remarkable when you think about where Korea was about 70 years ago. It's interesting to note that in 1960, GDP per capita in Korea was around $79. That was ranking with many of the lowest economies of the world at that time. So after having gone through a war and colonization, it's really remarkable to see what has happened here on the ground since that time. Korea industrialized, had a remarkably growing economy from 1960 through the 90s, joined the OECD in 1996, and then acceded to the G20 in 2010. That is really remarkable when you think about that, coming from what was basically an agrarian economy to an industrial economy in such a short time, and entering and joining the top industrialized countries in the world. Just in terms of, there's the numbers, population is about 5.8 million, small but remarkable market. A U.S. population, just by comparison, is about 320 million. GDP is 1.5 trillion. We list here 11 in the world, but now we're looking at numbers. It varies in the numbers as they come in. So right now it's number 12 in the world. Per capita GDP, I talked about that $79 figure in 1960. Per capita GDP today is right around $32,000. By comparison, per capita GDP in the United States is right around 60,000. But if you come back to the region, per capita GDP in China is 8,800. Taiwan is 25,000. Russia is about 11,000. Japan is 38,000. And then also, if we look to our neighbors to the north, in North Korea, it is only 1,300. Korea, in a sense, as a market, really compares well with European markets such as Italy and Spain in terms of size and buying power. Again, I think that speaks to, if you look at that growth and that change from just 70 years ago, that's quite remarkable, and speaks to what has happened here in this dynamic place. Size is about 84,610 square miles, roughly the size of states like Indiana, Utah, or Idaho, but given the population, that could be 16 times, 30 times the population here in Korea. Just looking at our bilateral commercial relationship, it's very strong. There is a total trade of about $170 billion last year, which was a 7% increase over 2017, and an all-time high. So we really have a very good trade relationship with Korea. Overall, the trade balance has actually declined over the past 3 years. It's down to just $7.4 billion in 2018, which was a 22% decrease from 2017. Goods trade, which is always very important, it was at $133 billion, and that deficit is also down to right around $17 billion, and that is a 23% decrease from 2017. On average, we maintain a $10 to $14 billion trade surplus on the services side with Korea. Next slide. This is just looking at the challenges here that Korea is facing. They've had lower growth estimates, between 2 to 3% in recent years, oftentimes, but that's different from the 3 to 4% growth rates that Korea has enjoyed in the past. We've seen weak job growth, and that's a major concern for the administration. Very much so, these are signs of a maturing economy as it's trying to as Korea transitions from an export-led economy to a more mature economy. And so they are trying to figure out how they do that and maintain growth rates. Also, Korea is going to face some demographic challenges in the world, in the economy, as their population is decreasing, as is happening, say, in other economies such as Japan and other industrialized economies. So that will be a challenge moving forward. Next slide. This is, as they look to future, what's going to be the area of future growth. We hear a lot here about the fourth industrial revolution. They're looking to high tech across the board in what is going to try to drive the economy forward. They see that as a key to economic growth in the future. As you know, Korea was the first company to deploy 5G networks, and pretty much the estimates are by the end of the year they will have full 5G coverage throughout the country. They look to that as one element, as one step in the fourth industrial revolution that will drive this type of growth, targeting those what we list there, those market sectors in healthcare and defense and smart cities. They see a lot of potential for growth in those areas. Next slide. This is, we have a free trade agreement with Korea, which has helped and been a boon to exports from the United States. Established 7 years ago, a significant reduction in tariffs. They should go down to 99% tariff-free by 2022. We've seen a $43 billion increase in trade since the trade agreement was first signed. When the new administration came in, they renegotiated the agreement. They're focused on autos, customs, pharmaceuticals, and steel. So we reached a renegotiated agreement a little over a year ago, signed it in September, then it was ratified by the Korean National Assembly late last year. And so that's gone into effect, and we expect to see help to increase exports even more from the United States. So just a note on, we have just kind of finishing up here, we have a very strong relationship on all sides with South Korea. It's a great market for U.S. goods and services, especially in aerospace and defense. We have shared values, and so we welcome you here, and thank you for being on the call. Next slide. So now I'm going to turn the time over to Sunny and Colonel Gelati.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Brad, for the introduction. Hi, I'm Jenny Clark, Commercial Specialist in Seoul, Korea. And on the next slide, I'll be going over general market situation for defense sector with some basic information on the aerospace and defense product procurement. Today, we also have a very, very special important speaker from Just McKay, Colonel Gelati, and thank you for joining us today. And Colonel Gelati will also provide his comments as we go along the slides. This is a very brief snapshot of Korea's aerospace defense market. Korea is the sixth largest, based on the U.S. Census data on shipment basis. Korea is the sixth largest market for the U.S. defense export in 2017. And also, Korea has the seventh largest military force in the world, and of course, is a major defense ally to the U.S. And based on the statistics actually announced by DAPA, Korea has procured over 1.2 billion U.S. defense items in 2017, and also constitutes approximately over 80% of Korea's total import from 2013 to 17. The high percentage is actually due to the sharp increase in the FMS purchase in 2014. And based on the Korea International Trade Association's data, over 98% of aerospace imports actually are for the commercial and military aircraft and their parts and components. And among this, U.S. constitutes over 70% of Korea's imports. More advanced fighters, surveillance aircraft, naval weapon and surveillance systems, and the ground combat systems are constantly in demand. And also high reliance on import especially for the aircraft platforms and avionics. The radars and missile systems are seen. But it is also true that Korea also has a very great ambition to grow its defense exports and indigenous local development.
I had just one quick comment to that. And good evening. Thank you. Colonel Dave Gelati from Just Mag K, and you saw the team that's supporting ADEX on the first slide. And Miss Misso, by the way, my Director of Coordination and Communication, for any engagements that we'll be part of during ADEX, she'll be my lead for coordinating those. And my Air Force Branch Chief, Lieutenant Colonel Jay Raley, is working on the mechanics with the Rock Air Force for that portion of ADEX as well. So I just wanted to highlight that. But just briefly, so in 2014, you saw the spike in Rock acquired U.S. origin FMS. And what's significant about that point is, at that point, their domestic defense industry wasn't as robust and their ambitions not as high as it is now. So they didn't have a choice back then but to purchase a lot of those big U.S. origin platforms and purchase them pure. So here's your U.S. origin end item, here's your U.S. origin support, and kind of there you go. What's happened since then, although the FMS acquisitions have continued to increase, and I think there's still a lot of room for that in the future, is the Korean domestic capability portfolio, as Sunny highlighted, has also increased. So you have a $30 billion U.S. origin portfolio, you have a robust and increasing ROC domestic defense portfolio that in this combined structure puts a high premium on things like interoperability and that kind of stuff. So you'll see in later slides some focus on interoperability as well. But also what you'll see is a drive toward, even if it's a U.S. origin acquisition, Korea more and more will want a part of that process, whether it's co-production, co-development, or being part of the integrated supply chain. So to help vector your strategy as you engage Korea, just some highlights there. Thanks.
Thank you. The defense budget side. Defense budget is an important aspect for the defense procurement, and around $42 billion US has been allocated for Korea's year 2019 budget. This is an 8% increase from last year, and usually the budget allocation to the force improvement plan should be carefully monitored, since this is the part where the acquisition budget is allocated. And usually around 30% of the total defense budget is allocated to the force improvement plan. And the next slide actually shows where Korea is at on the budget spending. Korea is the world's 10th country for the budget spending. And also based on GDP ratio, Korea is among leading top 5 nations for the military budget allocation. Do you have anything to add, Colonel?
No, it is the highest in their history. 2018 was $41.3 billion. The challenge is how they're prioritizing that. So they're trying to do a little bit of everything, kind of appease or meet alliance or combined defense requirements, but also given the domestic ambitions. So a lot of that is diluted across a number of different areas that they're focused on. Just from an alliance perspective, we're trying to encourage making some of the right decisions or prioritizations over time and space, but there's still a lot of pressure to go pursue the domestic initiatives. For example, conditions-based OPCON transition, at least from an operational military perspective, is the USFK commander and the U.S.'s focus area. And Korea is trying to do that, but they're trying to do that on par or on the balance of maintaining all their domestic initiatives as well. So you see a little bit of tension or competitiveness between those two priorities.
Next slide actually shows the two main strategies, kill chain and Korea air and missile defense, which are the main defense strategy announced by the Ministry of National Defense and also reflected in the midterm plan, which is actually have a major influence on the Korea's procurement decision. Kill chain actually is an offense-oriented defense system that detects missiles in real time, and their goal is to detect any potential threat from the North Korea and take a head start in attacking the nuclear weapon within 30 minutes. The related weapon systems will be like Global Hawk and military satellites and Army tactical missile system, which is actually developed indigenously by a Korean company. The Korean air and missile defense is a lower ground defense system where Patriot missiles and the air and missile defense cells and early warning radar plays an indispensable role. But I'd like to also invite Colonel Gelati to comment about these important strategies.
No, that's a pretty accurate summary, Sunny. Thank you. I would just say that, so kill chain and KAMD, and it used to include a third component called Korea Massive Punishment and Retaliation, which was kind of like their doctrinal approach to how to deal with North Korea. And in recent strategies, that has dropped off. both to kind of support President Moon's reconciliation approach to North Korea, so not calling them out so directly in the strategy, and moving toward more of a functional definition of the threats rather than a country-specific. But kill chain and KAMD are kind of how Korea translates their commitments to the either OPCON transition or the combined defense, but through their domestic strategy, or how they define their domestic strategy. So the point is, I think, to you guys, is the more you can market or present your products or services in support of kill chain and KAMD, that'll resonate within the domestic audience.
Thank you. On next couple of slides, we'll cover basic facts, such as the key entities involved in defense procurement and also the process for the acquisition. DAPA, which stands for Defense Acquisition Program Administration, is actually the key entity that U.S. companies need to be aware of for the defense procurement in Korea. DAPA is the sole government agency executing the defense procurement programs, and all foreign suppliers wanting to provide their products and services must be registered with DAPA. Acquisition method is typically divided into first, local production, second, domestic procurement, and third, foreign procurement. For foreign procurement, it will be either through direct commercial sales or the foreign military sales, or sometimes hybrid of both, depending on the programs. For the direct commercial sales, as many of you already know, U.S. suppliers deal directly with the end users through DAPA or Korean defense companies. And for the foreign military sales, U.S. suppliers form a contract with the U.S. DoD, and the U.S. government is in charge for sales to Korean government. The figures change every year, but as we covered on the previous slide, from 2013 to 2017, around 67% was procured through FMS, and this is due to a sharp increase in 2014 purchase through FMS, like F-35 and Global Hawk and other platforms. This chart shows that defense acquisition can take 5 years, or actually more, from the concept to RFP and contract award stage. The planning and requirements are proposed on the first year, and concept and scope is developed by relevant military services, the Ministry of National Defense, and Joint Chief of Staff. Decisions on the acquisition method is usually decided in the second year, and the execution and production is scheduled to start from third or fourth year. Real operations and maintenance start from the 5th year. However, this is a very, very usually ideal case, and many of the programs, especially the larger one, took much longer than 5 years. And Ministry of National Defense announces its 5-year midterm plan every year, and also detailed information are not disclosed. Midterm plan gives good picture of where Korean government's defense strategy and plans are heading, and on which key weapon systems or items that the Korean government is aiming to procure in the future.
And just to highlight on that, I mean, and although there are kind of pure DCS cases and pure FMS cases, more so they're hybrids, or there's obviously some relationship, because they all at some point integrate into a defense capability. So as you approach the country team or engage us, try not to bifurcate how you engage, because at the end of the day, I think a more holistic approach, however it turns out through the mechanism, whether it's DCS or FMS, the more we can coordinate or collaborate the total picture, I think it'll be more effective whatever route they take. There's pressure to make a decision to go domestic if they're going to pursue acquisition, and then second to go DCS if they can, and only FMS when they have to. That's changing a little bit, because I think they like internally the transparency provided through FMS for domestic reasons. DAPA and Korea in general, the defense community, just came off about 2 to 3 years of pretty heavy audits and inspections and so on that have put a lot of pressure on transparency. So my point is, just look at the total picture. Think of it as a holistic capability that's going to have components of both in there.
An offset program for U.S. companies wishing to supply their products to Korean military. One important program to be aware of is an offset program administered by DAPA. For defense contracts valued over $10 million will have an offset obligation of the contract value. The percentage will differ by whether there's a competition or not, but usually for a program with competing sources, 50% of the main contract amount needs to be offered as an offset program. For years, industries have been faced with various issues with the offset regulations. So DAPA started a study 2 years ago to make changes to the current offset policy. And based on the study result, DAPA is pushing for reforms on the following categories. First of all, offset won't be regarded as free of cost anymore. And for the FMS program, there won't be any offset obligations imposed. And policy to obtain tech transfer remains, but DAPA is putting more emphasis on local production, export opportunities, and joint investments. DAPA would change the name offset to industrial cooperation, fostering foreign companies to work more with the local industries in Korea. Pre-banking system will give more flexibility to foreign suppliers. This is regarded as a major positive change by the U.S. companies. An industrial cooperation quota system will be implemented, which means that certain portion of the weapon systems or any programs has to be sourced domestically. Quota ratio has not been stated, but DAPA expects it will be around average of 5%, but nothing has been confirmed or announced yet. But in conclusion, more emphasis is put on the local production and cooperation with the local industry. And this is an important movement toward Korean government moving toward fostering more co-working relations with the local industry with the foreign suppliers who's wanting to provide their services or products. Briefly on the civil aviation and space market, there are two major airliners, Korean Air and Asiana. There are 9 low-cost carriers. 3 new has been approved by the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport. And 6 LCC have demonstrated dramatic annual sales growth over the past years. Korea has 2 state-owned airport companies, Incheon International and Korea Airport Corporation. Incheon International is actually the nation's largest and has its main international terminals, while the Korea Airport Corporation operates a total of 14 airports, of which mostly have a domestic status. Civil aerospace market is not a large market relatively compared to the military aerospace market. Next slide. Korean airliners actually heavily relied on the foreign MRO companies, spending approximately over $900 million a year. Korean Airline used to be the only company that had its own MRO capability for the civil aerospace platforms. Other airliners were getting MRO support from other countries like Singapore, China, and others. But recently, Kane has been established to provide civil aerospace MRO support for the commercial airliners. And the largest shareholder of Kane's is actually KAI, Korea Aerospace Industries. Space market is also growing, but Korea is rather a small market compared to the other space-leading nations in the world. And Korea Aerospace Research Institute, KARI, is actually the main organization that drives and leads the space development in Korea. On next slide, we would like to list some of the opportunity areas that U.S. companies might want to pay attention to, especially on the aerospace sector. On the Air Force side, some of the major defense acquisition programs are the programs that have been already executed or expected to be executed in near future. As you all know, F-35 was one of the largest programs of all in the Air Force. The Global Hawks were purchased in the same year that the Korean government had purchased F-35. Fortunately, U.S. lost the competition on the refueling tanker project. And also on the KFX, which is the indigenous fighter jet program for Korea, the GE Aviation's engine will be the base for the KFX development.
So while the MRTTs were purchased from Spain, the LARICM capability is going to be from the U.S. and integrated onto those platforms. So even if they do make some third-party or foreign procurements, there's still opportunities for integration, as well as Sunny pointed out, for the domestic capabilities or efforts. There's still a lot of U.S. participation there.
And the Army and Navy side, upgrades are expected on the major rotor wing platforms, the Chinook and the Black Hawk U-60. CH-47 has been delayed for some time and still waiting for a decision on the purchasing method. And Apache attack helicopters were purchased, and now additional purchase is being considered. Nothing has been announced or decided yet.
Just one comment on Army aviation. So the Army aviation strategy is kind of not on hold, but they're in a window of, do they wait and look toward future vertical lift options, which will influence what they do with CH-47 and UH-60. But I think that's far enough off that they're going to have to make some decision or commitment on the current rotary wing platforms, either to upgrade to the Fox model potentially for CH-47, and also upgrades or new acquisition on the UH-60 models. As far as Apache, I think there is room for additional quantities. I think the question will be how many on the balance of those other considerations that I mentioned.
And also recently, Boeing's P-8 Poseidon has been selected as the maritime patrol aircraft by Korean Navy. The LAH and LCH, which stands for Light Armed Helicopter and Light Commercial Helicopter, will be another indigenous development program where CAI is leading the development, cooperating with the Airbus. And of course, Aegis is one of the major acquisition programs for the Navy side. So this slide shows a list of rotor wing platforms that Korean military currently owns and operates. As you may know, the major platforms that have some opportunities are highlighted in red, and CH-47 and 60s, as mentioned in previous slides, are offered the upgrade program possibility. And the old platforms, such as the AH-1 Cobra, face some maintenance issues, which present some of the opportunities for companies who will be able to provide the legacy items for follow-on support, maintenance support for this platform. On the Air Force and Navy side, upgrade are and will be done on F-16s. On, as you know, F-35s were purchased as a next-gen fighter jet program. And KFX, which is a Korean indigenous fighter jet development, is led by CAI. And from the industry, it has been said the opportunities can be seen for companies who have experience of upgrading radar, avionics, armed equipment, and software for the possibly the KF-15K the program. And we see that P3C Ryan also has some follow-on support issues with the legacy item. So these are some of the areas that that U.S. industry might look into as a best prospect. C4ISR as usual, and also on the military aerospace and avionics, the state-of-art missile system, and the high-quality sensors and gyros, high-tech electronics and systems with specifications and quality beyond that the local Korean companies will be able to offer. And of course, on the legacy parts for the old platforms, especially on the hard-to-find and difficult-to-procure items, have a great opportunity in this market. And one of the important things to check is that proven sales record for the U.S. military is almost considered as a must. So oftentimes, Korean military customers will ask whether a certain item was sold to and actually used by the U.S. military. And although in small in quantity and contract value, constant demand is actually very, very niche market, but it's a constant demand are expected on some of the tactical items needed by Special Forces and Marine Corps. And for those interested in offering services and product to Korean military, joint development, co-production, or licensed production should be considered at some point as an option, as Korea puts more emphasis on the local industry development. Next slide shows an example of legacy items that Korean military immediately needs but has difficulties in obtaining. So for companies who are able to offer items on this slide, on this list, will have a great business opportunity. On the next slide. This is actually another continuation of the items. I think this is on the Black Hawk side, the next slide. And these are the items that Korean military actually really immediately needs on the CH-47 platform. The barriers and threats, we'll hope following information will actually discourage our U.S. companies exploring opportunities in this market. But wanted to actually share some of the facts here that not only U.S. but all foreign companies may experience in Korean market. And we hope that following information would help you understand more about doing business in Korea and actually for you to set up right strategy aiming the relevant customers in Korea. Korea is very ambitious on defense exports and also indigenous development. In 2017, total exports of defense products exceeded over $3 billion US, which is almost a triple the amount compared to 2010. And the following also slides present some of the major defense export that Korea had delivered over the last 5 years, and most of them is targeting the ASEAN countries, and some of them in Europe and also in Latin America. But a major the threat related to this effort is that Korean government's vision and strategy, along with the effort and assistance provided to the local defense industry players, many times leads to a decision of domestic procurement or local development, where foreign procurement option is actually ruled out from the beginning stage of the acquisition plan. And this would actually get rid of all the opportunity of procuring items from the overseas market. This chart shows the technology level evaluation done by DAPA and DTAC. DTAC stands for Defense Agency for Technology and Quality. All the number figures are in percentage, and it shows the level of technology that current Korean industry is at. 100% is the U.S. technology level, and all figures are the relative figures compared to the U.S. level. Well, this slide might be considered rather a subjective analysis done by DTAC, but the key takeaway from this would be that indigenous development rate is continuously increasing 3% annually over the past 5 years. And also Korea still relies on import heavily for the key weapon systems and core mission equipment. Korea is continuously putting emphasis on the indigenous development on local production. There are several aerospace clusters consisted of small and medium enterprises that cluster around KAI, Korea Aerospace Industry in Sacheon area, which is on the southern part of Korean Peninsula, is the largest. So there are sets of Korean small and medium-sized companies clustered around KAI, and these companies have different sets of capabilities and competence. As the chart shows, there are a number of companies who provide assembly, the metaforming, the composite, tooling, special processes, services, and these companies often compete with the U.S. companies who provide similar services. And also these companies are often the recipient of the offset program. And although there are risks associated on the quality assurance side, U.S. companies, the large ones, who has to offer offset programs as an obligation, gets more credit for working with these small and medium-sized enterprises in Korea. And do you have any last comments before we?
No, that was highlighted pretty well.
Okay.
If there's any specific questions,
okay.
we can.
Thank you. Now I'll turn it over to Richard in our Chicago office to explain how our organization, Commercial Service, can assist U.S. companies in general.
Hi, thank you very much. So I'd like to take a few minutes to just introduce the services that the U.S. Commercial Service can offer in Korea and also elsewhere around the globe. We operate a very extensive network of both domestic and international offices, which can encourage you to expand opportunities worldwide. And we do that in a variety of ways. But some of our most, do you mind hitting the next slide for me?
Richard, I think you also have control.
I'm sorry, it's not working for me.
Got it. Yeah, we're on the next.
All right. Sure. So getting back to the services we can offer. Yes, we do a lot of different areas inside, the market assessment insights. But primarily, the biggest thing is that you're going to need a partner in country. So you're going to want a distributor or a sales representative, and that's really where our services come into play. And we can do that in a variety of ways, including an international partner search, which would effectively vet and provide opportunities for you to meet with interested agents or distributors in country, or we can do a full customized gold key service, which will allow you to basically have the customized aspects of the international partner search, find the potential agents or distributors, and then at the same time provide you with the ability to go and directly meet with the interested parties. We also offer an extensive range of due diligence services, which are very important in this definite industry and arena, and a single company promotion, which is often used to highlight opportunities to interface with ministerial or government level officials and provide an avenue for promotion and commercial diplomacy. When dealing with any sort of aerospace and defense procurement, I highly encourage all U.S. companies to take advantage of the U.S. Department of Commerce Advocacy Center. The Advocacy Center is pretty much the one-stop shop for any business-to-government transaction. They will advocate on behalf of any U.S. companies who are moving in the sphere to bid for any RFPs or any tenders, and also provide a little bit more transparency and level the playing field, if you will, when it comes to dealing with foreign government entities. So I highly encourage you to reach out to myself or your local commercial service representative to take advantage of the valuable service that the Advocacy Center offers. And, of course, there are definitely local offices in every state that you may find yourself in. And also, I'm more than happy to, or Sunny can answer any questions in regards to services which may be, available or you wish to pursue. And with that, I think I will turn it over to Peter Kelly from Kalman Worldwide.
Hi. Thanks, Richard. Perfect. And am I advancing my slides?
No, we'll do it, Peter.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks, Sunny. Can you, next slide, please? Next slide, Sunny, please.
Yes.
Thanks. For more than 50 years, Kalman's USA Partnership Pavilion has helped U.S. suppliers meet overseas buyers at international trade shows. As the U.S. Pavilion organizer at Seoul ADEX, we deliver more of what you're going for. Kalman's credo is ORI, Opportunities, Relationships, and Impact, which are all geared towards helping exhibitors meet or exceed their on-site goals. Our high-profile exhibit space and program put you in the middle of one of the most active aerospace and defense markets in the Asia-Pacific region. The upcoming edition of the show will be similar to the 2017 event, which saw 85,000 trade visitors from more than 50 countries. While exhibiting in the show itself outside of the pavilion is an option, we do encourage all U.S. companies to participate within the pavilion, as we are highlighted center stage, giving pavilion exhibitors a leg up on non-pavilion exhibitors who can be lost in a sea of over 400 exhibiting companies. Next slide. The pavilion program is in place so that our exhibitors can capitalize on our connection. We work with government leaders, industry advocates, qualified buyers, media observers, and show organizers that work with us to get closer to you. Next slide. The pavilion offers more chances to meet these industry leaders via the pavilion's program. In 2017, pavilion exhibitors had a chance to engage with distinguished visitors during our welcome reception. Next slide. The welcome reception and the opening ceremony go hand in hand with, we always invite our charge d'affaires or our ambassador. In this case, in 2017, we had the charge d'affaires, Mark Napper, as a speaker. Next slide. Following the opening ceremony and welcome reception, we do a VIP tour with obviously Mark Napper and senior level military DVs and U.S. Embassy officials that were in attendance during the opening ceremony. Next slide. So we have the USA South Korea networking reception, which is held in the aisles of the pavilion, and it offers more relaxed setting to discuss business with other pavilion exhibitors and invited buyers from the region. Next slide. And finally, in the program that we had in 2017 was our forum, where along with Ms. Grant, Undersecretary of the U.S. Air Force, we presented a gift to the ROK Air Force. We also held presentations from industry thought leaders throughout the trade days. Next slide. So many of the pavilion events and activities are centered around the pavilion's meeting point, where we encourage our exhibitors to meet with clients and enjoy a more private setting to discuss business. The meeting point is a fully staffed exhibitor lounge where pavilion exhibitors can take advantage of bilingual speakers, free Wi-Fi, printing, refreshments, and seating for informal meetings. The pavilion also offers a private conference room for exhibitors that need a quiet space to discuss business behind closed doors. Next slide, please. In addition to our on-site impact, Coleman's marketing team amplifies the pavilion's message. Through social media and ads in industry-leading publications, we garner more attention from pavilion exhibitors before, during, and after the show. These are a few of the articles that were published in the official show daily for 2017. Next slide. Now, with a critical mass of close to 1,100 square meters of exhibit space, the pavilion is a natural destination for buyers to visit. Located in the first hall, Hall A, the show's natural traffic pattern funnels visitors into the hall from the main entry gates, giving our exhibitors a chance to see the right attendees first thing in the morning. This is I do have a full layout of the venue itself, so if anyone needs it, I can provide that as well after the webinar. The pavilion currently has 20 exhibiting companies and over 1,020 square meters of occupied exhibit space. Next slide, please. From an SME shared space to 100 square meters of raw space, the pavilion offers a multitude of exhibiting options. Our customizable turnkey build is focused on a greater impact for your brand. This gives you a measurable on-site advantage over the standard turnkey or shell scheme package that the show provides to companies that do a turnkey build. We do also offer an upgraded package or upgraded or customizable pieces within the turnkey build. So if you are interested in really making it feel like your own, we can definitely do that. or if you want to go with a full custom build like you see on the right, those two pictures there, we have a full, our Coleman Creative Services team can help you from design to completion, making everything much easier and hopefully your on-site plan much more successful. Next slide, please. And that's the end of mine. Mine was pretty quick, 5 minutes or so. I'd like to say thank you to the U.S. Commercial Service team, JustMedK, everyone that was part of the webinar. A lot of great information, and I look forward to talking to participants and continuing the conversation. Thank you very much.
Question, Mike.
Oh, this is the KMD question, or where's it? Where's the question?
I will want to reach out to you tomorrow. I am supplied to their food chain for the conference. Let me know. So Mr. Mike Winsek, if you could just email Sunny Park or
Just put both of us on there. There's probably a split between the two. July.
Some have asked if the slides will be emailed and available for download.
We'll probably provide a separate link for them to download.
Operator, are there any questions online?
Thank you for asking. Presently, no, but again, if you have a question over the telephone, please press star, then 1. Take a moment to record your name. Your name is needed to introduce your question. Star, then 1. 1 moment for our first question. Thank you.
Is there a bead board for legacy aviation requirements? Is there a bead board for legacy aviation requirements?
It depends, but for the legacy items, DAPA usually opens a public bid every once in the first half of the year, and the other on the second half. But some of the items are actually directly purchased on the logistics command, like Air Force or either Army or Navy logistics command.
Is it easier for the Korean military to purchase U.S. goods via local wrap or reseller in Korea? If a sale is done through a Korean reseller, is that still considered a DCS sale?
They don't, if it's a U.S. origin FMS or purchase, they'll do it through, they could coordinate it through a Korean agent, but they don't do it through a Korea rep or reseller in Korea. It's between the U.S. company and DAPA, but they do use local Korean agents to help facilitate.
Where can we find more information on partnering for distribution services?
You can always look for our the service, the business matchmaking service, the GoKey service, where we present with a list of vetted potential partners for U.S. companies to consider on finding a partner or agent or sales representative.
From Mr. Robert Mervin, how do you access DAPA or Logistics Command bid boards?
I think they publicly announce it on the DAPA website, but usually often the case, foreign companies might have some difficulties in understanding the process or sometimes the language issue. So a lot of the parts and component suppliers, they do use the sales rep or the distributor within in country to help them go through the bid process.
We have a question that was already answered. We already have a partner in Korea and we want to exhibit in the U.S. pavilion. Can we share the space with our Korean partner? And Mr. And it was said yes.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, we do encourage, if you do have a local partner, we do encourage a shared space. It's obviously a little bit more economical. It does help to have locals on site to build relationships, and we're more than happy to accommodate space for both companies.
From Louis Litao, in the past, many Korean companies wanted exclusivity. Is it still true today?
Depends on the part. Depends on the equipment or the items, but that's most in cases that's true.
Does Korean Air have any purchasing ability or budget for military items on behalf of ROK?
Oh, Oh, so can Korean Air purchase military items? Are they? I think it's saying within Korea, is Korean Air considered able to buy defense articles? I don't know. I don't know specifically, to be honest.
I'm not sure, but they do provide a maintenance services for the military platforms.
But in terms of their acquisition itself, I don't know if it would have to go through
probably.
TAPA. But Korean Air does have defense.
They do. They provide
yeah.
services. That service might be a contract with DAPA also.
Yeah.
From Mike Vincent, localization has been an issue with Republic of Korea. Any comments?
I'm not too sure about that question. Localization has been an issue. There has been some issues on the quality and the performance side, but I guess the localization has to be viewed more on the political perspective, because if the Korean administration is so having an ambition to grow its own industry and since the national budget is tied to the policy issues, then the localization is a trend that all the suppliers, not only foreign suppliers, but also all suppliers need to look into. But the problem itself, there has been constant issues brought up with the performance or the quality. But I don't know, that depends on the program, and I don't know how much influence that would have on the next procurement decision.
Is there a local company that has maintenance contracts for the F-15?
Local Korean companies. There are, but I'd have to confirm what they provide.
There are, but we have to look into it to provide you with the exact information.
We answered. How do you accept DAPA or Logistics Command Board?
That was the previous question. Yeah.
Okay. How do you suggest a U.S. company make meaningful contacts in the ROCAP or ROCA depot, resupply test equipment for MRO operations?
I think just on both sides, coordinate initially through us, and then we can help channel them. Just for the depot question, just coordinate with Sunny and I initially, and then we'll help guide you to respective POCs.
Please tell me more about the value-added services you are offering to first-time exhibitor SMEs. I think that would be to Mr. Kelly.
Yeah. So with the SME program that we have, we do offer a shared space for SMEs that obviously it's a little bit more cost-effective to share a space than go at it alone. But the major value add for that program is working with Sunny, the commercial service team, the boots on the ground in South Korea, and Sunny does put together a fantastic Gold Key program that helps match you with locals that you're looking for. So that obviously I can go into more detail once this webinar is over, but that's really the meat of the SME program that we have. Sunny, do you have anything that you would like to add about that program?
No, for specifics, please contact us separately, because every company's needs will be different. So it would be, I think the best solution would be contact us separately and discuss what you need and what your objectives are, and we'll see how we can assist you with that.
Though you have discussed fundamentals of the logistical focus of South Korea and the mechanics of purchasing, etc., however, is there a U.S.-South Korea strategic plan which gives more insight into what drives the overall areas of focus for procurement? From Chadwick Nuvra.
So there's an operational element to that in terms of a U.S.-South Korea strategic plan that's driven by, obviously the combined defense structure where the operational requirements are derived from. How both sides pursue those acquisitions is obviously a sovereign, decision and process, but the requirements themselves, at least at the operational level or focus, are derived from the combined defense structure and planning process.
Operator, is anyone online with a question?
Yes, we do. Tom Reddy, your line is open now. You may ask your question.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. This is Tom Reddy from Land Venture Group. I have a couple of questions. The first few are probably more suitable to Colonel Gilotti, but also Ms. Park may be able to address some of them. So just a quick background. I used to be an F-15 pilot in the U.S. Air Force before, so my company is involved in a number of things, MRO and other things, private equity and things of that nature. So specifically my interest is to learn a bit more about this newly created MRO company. Secondly, we have a space launch company, which is located in Cedar Park, Texas, that I have actually invested into, and we're looking at acquiring some IP that KARI and the Korean space industry have. So I was wondering if you could guide us in terms of how we can, sort of better engage with the Korean government and the respective agencies in the space agency. And then thirdly, we have a unsuccessful case from the past where I was previously involved in as a consultant in the airport sector, working with a joint venture company between the Houston Airport System and the largest pension fund in Canada called OMERS, Ontario Municipal Employment Retirement System, where there was an attempted privatization of several airports. I personally did a lot of work at Cheongju Airport, where the 17th wing of the ROCAF is located. In the end, we were unsuccessful in the bid process, so I wanted to understand what the landscape is with privatization of transport class infrastructure such as airports and things, and what the space policy is for the Republic of Korea government, basically, going forward. And the final question, I'm sorry, I know that's quite a bit of stuff. Final question for Colonel Gilotti is, with regards to the Apache program, while I know that there's a potential for additional purchases or procurement from Army Aviation, specific question I wanted to ask is on the weapons and tactics side with regards to doctrine, because I know many of the FMS cases on the Apache, which we've been looking closely at, for example, Cutter, for example, have no WebTAP capability, weapons and tactics capability, or any doctrine capability that was embedded into it. Essentially, the prime contractor, Boeing, is providing the initial handover and ab initio to initial RTU type qualification on the weapons system, and then handing over to the host nation. So are there any opportunities there? And if so, how best do we engage with that? Do we start that process through your office, Colonel, and work in conjunction with the Pentagon here, with people like SAF-IA and the equivalent for the Army and so on? And or is there a different process? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Just to recap your four questions so we're straight. So space, MRO, privatization of the airports, and Apache, the weapons and training question. I'll try to answer two of them, and I think Sunny is better positioned to answer the MRO question and the privatization question, although I do go to Cheongju pretty frequently these days, home of the ROC F-35A. Space is kind of a new frontier, as well as cyber, in terms of what it means for security cooperation and assistance. And I think we've talked about it from a policy perspective for a while now, both space and cyber, but how that's going to translate into capability requirements that U.S. and ROC defense and defense industries get after, I think is just emerging. So I don't have any specific areas right now that I could say that I could focus your efforts, but I think that's an area that we're starting to look at now. Now that we've talked about the policy of it for a while, what does that mean in terms of our community and how we can support? The second question is the Apache, and I think that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought it up. Not just for the Apache, but all of these platforms, there's probably a gap in there or a niche on weapons, tactics, training, those other aspects of what we call the .mil PF that has to come together to form a total capability. I think there is room there. I'd like to talk to you some more specifically about what you think you can offer in that area. I'd start with us in the JustMag to help you focus, sharpen what we think the requirements are for that platform. We do talk with the ROC Army Aviation Command pretty frequently, and also U.S. Forces Korea. So just shoot me an email separately, and let's go from there, and we can work out from there.
Yeah, thanks, Colonel. That would be great, because I actually have both U.S. guys out of both Rucker, former guys out of Rucker and Hood, and also the Air Force guys out of Maxwell, and also on the Apache specifically, the key Dutch guys who developed the WEPTAC doctrine, which is now widely employed, including with the U.S. forces in Afghanistan, et cetera. They all work for me now, so more than happy to engage further, and also come and make a separate visit to develop a better understanding and develop a closer relationship with your organization, Colonel, to take that forward. Yeah.
Thank you. And the execution on that may very well likely turn into a direct contract. But I think in terms of the requirement, the operational requirement or need, start with us, and then you very well may translate over into a direct contract, or they may go FMS. But either way, yeah, let's look at the requirement first. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Colonel. Yeah. And I believe you said the other two questions, Ms. Park would be best positioned to address them. Yeah.
Yes, on the airport part, at this point, with the limited information that I have on the airport part, I think it would be best to for you to send me in a separate email, and for me to take time and look more into it to provide you with more relevant information on that. But on the MRO part, maybe you had questions on the new organization company called KAEMS, KAEMS.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to understand, what their ownership structure is and what their business focus is. Presumably, they're there to be the captive MRO in-house provider to all the Korean Airlines, the KAL and Asiana and all the low-cost carriers, and also to service the regional market. So that part is what I assume, but I don't know. But I was generally curious to understand more about their ownership structure and capabilities and things of that nature, and to just determine how best we could collaborate with them, because we're looking at some other project at the moment and are in talks with pretty much all the large MRO companies in terms of partnering in a different part of the world, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think KAEMS has been newly established, so probably they have a less than year of operation history. And I think they're aiming for the low-cost carriers in Korea, because Korean Air has their own capabilities, so I don't think they will be targeting Korean Air. I'm not too sure about Asiana. They are in a difficult financial status right now, but what I've heard from the media side is that they're actually aiming for the LCCs in Korea. And also the shareholder might have to look into this, but there has been talks about setting up its own MRO capability company in Korea supported by the government side. And I know for the shareholding side, KAI, the Korean aerospace industry, is the largest shareholder of the KAEMS.
Understood, ma'am. So would that mean, would it be correct to presume that they would also have, or at least this new organization would be setting up like OIND, maybe not O, but like IND, so intermittent and depot level capability to support the T-50 and the fighter version, the F-50 aircraft that KAI and Lockheed manufacture? Yeah.
I don't think so at this moment, because looking at their website, they were very much focused on the civil aerospace side.
Understood. Understood. And is Korean Aerospace primarily a government-owned company? If my understanding is correct? Yeah.
They're almost considered like sort of a quasi-government. But they're getting a lot of support from the government. That's true. But they're not a government entity, but they're almost considered.
Understood. Understood. Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. So I'll direct additional questions to you on email, same as with the Colonel, so we can take the discussion offline and allow you to look into certain things further and follow up accordingly thereafter. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And now I have one more question or comment, and that is from Mike Vinsek. Sir, your line is now open. Mike Vinsek, do you have a comment still or not? If you could check your mute button, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I'm good.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
I'll get a hold of Sonny and Richard. I'll get a hold of you offline.
Thank you. Now I have no further questions, no further comments at this time.
I think. Okay, if there's no other questions anymore, we would like to conclude this webinar. And then thank you everyone for joining. And thank you, Colonel Gelati, for joining us today early morning.
Thank you.
Hope the webinar was helpful, and hope we see a lot of companies for the air show in fall this year in Korea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for your participation in today's webinar event. As it is now concluded, please go ahead and disconnect. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.